How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Market Matters podcast. I'm your host, Chris Martin, and we've also got your other host.
You got Sam here, as always.
Yeah, how are we doing today?
Good, man. Episode 9, right?
Believe it's 9.
Wow,
yeah, we're close to 10.
We are. We were to say that together, too. That was
yeah,
good.
we should. Well, maybe not 10. We'll just do it at the same time.
Right. 10.
Double digits.
That's right.
Exciting, though. But
yeah.
As always, shall we just kick it off with the data?
For sure. Yeah, let's do it. Why not? It's been interesting, for sure.
Yes, it's been very interesting. So a few points we're going to go over. As always, we like to serve the Sacramento, Placer, and El Dorado counties out here in California. So that's the data we'll mostly be referencing. But we do want to talk about a little bit of statewide data and a little bit of nationwide just points for what's happening, just to get a big picture as well. For the most part, the story is low inventory. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of the theme right now.
Kind of the big point that's been happening. So we've had a steady decline. Because it's such low inventory, I wanted to look at what we were at since last year, this same springtime. So 2022, March, April. So we're down. For sale and sold is down 40% from last year at the same time. So
for sale and sold combined?
Combined. They both were pretty much the same. One was maybe 39, one was 40, but I mean, we're talking 40% each. Yeah.
Wow.
Pending was down about 30%, but again, just big kind of swaths here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the last year around April time. Yeah, that's when rates were still in the 3s in February and then started creeping in the 4s in March. And then we probably hit the top of the market towards the end of March and then the beginning of April. So, I'd say this time around April last year, we were probably in the mid to high 4s, approaching 5s.
Right.
Around the time. So
a lot of factors to contribute to that. Yeah.
God, that was a terrible time. Just going up so fast every week. It was so weird.
Very volatile, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that is the one. I think that is a good point, though. That is the one thing that I think the data does show is that it's downtrending, but really from such a skyrocket of the pandemic market, really what's happening is it's stabilizing.
Right.
And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like at least for the near future, the interest rates are going to be much more stable than what they were last year as well.
I mean, it's up for interpretation, but there's some people that are saying that there needs to be some more tightening on the Fed on the Fed side of things. But in terms of like another 2% increase, I don't think we're going to see that. It's very possible we may go up and see the 7s for a little bit more again.
Okay.
But again, like right now, when I do talk about rates, there are some scenarios right now that you might be in the low 7s. Mm-hmm. So it's just right now, it's kind of just playing out by ear, watching what the Fed's doing, looking at the proper data, mainly like labor that just came out,
right?
Inflation data, which came back from 5.7 to 5.6, big number.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, it actually is good. So parts of it, we're moving in the right direction. Some need a little bit of help still, but at the end of the day, we're still on the idea of just when you're ready, financially and mentally, that's the right way to go about it. On the professional mortgage side of things, just taking it day by day. We've been doing that for quite a long time now, probably about 8 months.
Yeah.
So just keep watching the data. I'm not going to be putting you guys in a position where I'm going to tell you where rates are going to be at a certain period of time. People keep talking about May. We're going to see some crazy rate change. But at the end of the day, they really don't know either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some people will cling on to very, very good news. I always love being optimistic, but you also have to be realistic and also have realistic expectations. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely. You got to take all the data in and then, again, have the mindset of, hey, no one's got the crystal ball. And if they tell you they do, they are lying.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they just are that ignorant. I don't know.
Yeah, I know a couple. And they are biting their tongues now because they did it.
So trust the data, folks. So speaking of that is year to date. Talking about even just a small change from last month to this month, same counties. So for sale is practically unchanged. I mean, it was like literally like a 0.1%. I mean, we almost have the exact same amount of homes that were for sale. And given that it seems in our market in particular, I think the average days on market is close to a month. I want to say it's between
It depends
20,
on
30.
the area.
Yeah,
It depends on the
yeah.
area. It's like between 30 and 60.
Right.
It really varies in depending on the pocket market you're working in or the county, the city. There's a multitude of things that could happen. I mean, I still see in some parts where supply is just so tight, we're still seeing average days on market under 30 days.
Yeah.
So it just depends. But yeah,
Right.
the one thing we can say for certain across the board is that obviously average days on market year over year has gone up quite significantly.
Yes.
So, but
So it seems like those are almost like we're looking at some of the same houses in that data potentially. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's less supply, but mainly people feel as though they're comfortable enough to be able to take it in the process and just actually just think it over, talk with your family and figure out and think it over and look at multiple homes. You don't have to make an offer that quickly. So it's just a different mental market as well out there too.
Exactly. And speaking of that, so other data points. So we got the for sale practically unchanged. So sold itself is down about 20% from last month. Sold. Yeah.
Interesting.
So we have for sale unchanged, but sold is going down. However, there's been a jump in pendings. So that would be
There it is.
That's what it is. So there's jump pendings is up almost 20% from last month.
There it is. Interesting. I have a theory.
You have a theory? Let's hear it.
Theory. One of them is, well, as we know, I talked about in the last podcast, but the California Dream for All program, which going back, if you did not watch it, which you should, it was a 20% down payment assistance, which is a 20% shared appreciation product. It's already ran out of money. After 11 days of it being launched, it was already absorbed.
Gone.
And that means upwards of 900 to potentially 2,300 families or borrowers, combination of the two, are new home buyers in the market. And that's a big deal when we're talking with such low supply. So like, for instance, if you got into contract, the official launch date was March 27th. So most of those are still in contract because usually these particular loans are locked for 40 days and most, if not all of them are within 30-day contracts. So we're still within that time frame.
Right.
So I think that played a role in the pendings being increased.
Right.
Because I mean, to me, that just shows there is a big demand for real estate. It's just the cost of goods and the simplicity of things are just more expensive. People have less savings to be able to put down towards their down payment and closing costs. So if you can save all your money and have a lower payment, everyone's going to go with that. If there's half the consideration, the 20% appreciation, but it's a great program because it also allowed you to be able to refinance after making 12 months of payments without having to pay off that second and the shared appreciation. So it's a good product. Unfortunately, it's gone. There's other down payment assistance like what we were talking about a while ago, My Home.
Yep.
The one that I'm going to be preaching a lot more about is going to be a standard conventional down payment assistance. So it just takes the other down payment, and the rate's like 6%, 6.125.
Okay.
It's really it's attractive in that regard, and you're allowed to take care of that. There's also one that you can actually take care of your down payment and closing costs, but as you can imagine, your interest rate's going to be higher.
Yeah.
So it's going to affect your comfortability that way. But there are definitely programs out there, and there's a multitude of them. But the one that I noticed was probably the best net benefit was that 3.5% because it still gives you a good rate.
Right.
Because usually those down payment assistance loans give you a higher rate because compensating because of the fact they're giving you a lump sum of cash to help you out.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, it's that give and take of like, okay, getting that upfront cash for the down payment versus that monthly affordability, right?
Right.
Kind of the seesaw there, right? For the most part. But yeah, very interesting how that one program, I mean, it could have been I think it was probably a huge factor in that jump in pendings. And it just, to your point, it just shows that since it was gone in 11 days that there are so many buyers sitting in the sidelines just watching. And I think when they saw that program and saw how good it was like, oh, yeah. Like, if we can afford it and we can make the payments make sense, that's worth paying the back end. So a lot of people 100%. Thought that was fair. So
100%.
Yeah.
It was sad to make. I got one into contract with that program, which is great. But I got one. It was crazy. I got the notification Thursday before they made the announcement that the following Tuesday they were going to run out of money. So I give one of the agents I was working with a call, and I said, "Hey, if they're interested in a property, I don't want to push you, but if they're interested, we got to move." So we got them into contract that night at 10:30, and then the following morning I put on my lock request at 8 a.m. right at the start, and there were so many inbound contracts, there's so many inbound locks that we weren't even able to get locked.
Wow.
Even though I put it in as early as I possibly could. It took
the waiting list of the locked contracts coming in.
I was talking with the lock desk, the lock department, and it was because they have to work directly with CalHFA. It's a government entity that essentially for California that aids in first-time home buyers, down payment assistance, et cetera. And it was taking them just like 30 to 60 minutes just to lock one loan just because of how many people were trying to do it all at once. And then CalHFA had to finally say, we can't, we ran out of money. We can't do it anymore. And it was such a bummer for my clients. And I had a couple other clients that were looking. I had to make that phone call and say, at least for now, everything's committed. 300 million gone like that.
Yeah.
But thankfully with that borrower, they actually had some money. So we were able to get it worked out with just a regular 3% down.
Good.
Conventional. Good. But yeah, it was sad because there were a lot of people that definitely were great applicants for it. And it would really help them a lot with their comfortability and affordability and especially with their reserves to be able to make that payment long term.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. There'll probably be a new program down the road, but we don't know when.
Yeah.
And there'll probably be a bulletin that will come out when it says whether there's because it's inevitable there's going to be some fallouts with some of these contracts, right? There's no way all of them are going to be able to just go from start to finish and not have any sort of fallout. Like there's always got to be some sort of people that are going to be able to not be able to get it through, whether it be because of the property, weren't able to make some negotiations with repairs. So there may be some fallout, but we'll see if there's any sort of like rekindling for like a short term. But I just know when that happens, it's going to be a shit show.
Just as fast and gone.
So I kind of, to me in my brain and my heart, it's like I just know I'm just
treat it as gone that way. Yeah,
I don't want to put out false hope out there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little too slight of a chance to bank on.
Unfortunately,
but hopefully, I mean, like you said, hopefully there'll be some great programs like that down the line. But until then, standard conventional. You've got your My Home. These are all great. Again, we always preach this. It's like the market's one thing, the loan programs are one thing, but really the factor of you. If you're financially ready, if you're in a comfortable space, it's like get into a home as soon as you can.
Yeah,
100% interest until you do.
Yeah, preach. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then last point, and you actually brought this up beforehand. Very interesting. So nationwide, we were seeing that about a third of these homes that are being absorbed were all new builds. Because that seems to be the majority of the inventory.
Yeah, and that's one of the big reasons as to why that is because they're all, builders. They're not going to have current mortgages on it. They're not going to have any sort of interest rate driven decision making some of the sellers that I was reading. I want to say, don't quote me, but it was like 68% of mortgages in the United States have a 4% or less interest rate. So there's a couple of things that are going on. You got obviously affordability. Also, you have the supply issues. So a lot of people are in a position for one, they don't want to give up their interest rate. And two, if they were to sell, what else can they buy? Because there's such a limited supply still. And you're also facing a little bit higher rate. So it's like, I get where they're coming from, but it's tough. It's tough. So that's where new home builders, and especially, as you know, with the incentives they're offering, it's getting a lot of new home buyers into something. And then it's a brand new home. So I'm seeing that, and it's just new builds, you can create the supply through it,
Right.
So, and they're still doing it as is. They're just trying to catch up after the COVID while everything was pretty much shut down.
Right. And that makes sense to your point. I think that is the biggest from the listing side of people selling. It's like, unless they're in a position where
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So I actually helped them. We closed in January, but I was helping them for like about 6 to 8 months. And my mom actually listed their home, and they were a growing family. And they had a 3% interest rate. So you'd think, oh, wow, they probably wouldn't want to sell. Well, they did. They wanted to take advantage of the pretty much the tail end of the top of the market. My mom got it listed at like last April and got them at the price they wanted to, which was great. But they were in an unfortunate position to where they were looking for the one. So for the meantime, they got a short-term rental and then just house their family there for now. It took a little bit of time to find the right one, but they did. And the main reason as to why is they wanted more room for their 2 kids, them, of course, 2 of them, and also an in-law. So there's a few instances, and of course, there's going to be financial limitations if you cannot, but if you have the finances to do so, people aren't really mattering. As long as it's comfortable for their current financial position on a conservative level, it makes sense. Because at the end of the day, the one thing I was talking to about another professional and client was, technically this is all relative if you think about it, because if you're able to manipulate your taxes with real estate, it really comes out to be a net zero in terms of benefit. Because you think about it in terms of, well, for one, we have mortgage interest that we actually are able to deduct from our taxes. And also mortgages are front loaded with interest. So the first 10 years you're paying mostly more than 50% towards interest. So if you're paying more interest, you have a higher interest rate in the short term for your comfortability, but you're able to deduct that. You get your 1098 form that's sent from your lender, and then it tells you exactly how much interest that you paid throughout the year, and then you're able to put that and claim that on your taxes. So that's a way to, because it really is, it all comes out the same way. It just depends on what you're paying in the short term versus how much you're able to get on the back end.
Right.
So
almost a way to neutralize that kind of, in a sense.
And that also comes along with, of course, mortgage insurance is also tax deductible, and property insurance.
Yep.
So you may be buying a more expensive home. You're like, oh, the taxes are so much higher. Make sure to always take into consideration when you're talking to an accountant. Again, I'm not a tax expert, but I know some things.
Exactly.
But that's just one way to look at it more big picture, because it's if you can figure out a way to make your money work and actually be able, because you're getting an investment with shelter and the ability to offset that on your taxes as well. So that's where most people that are in a better financial position, they understand that they're not too concerned about the initial comfortability or the initial, like the interest rate, because everyone's been interest rate driven for so long.
Right.
So they're like, I don't care, as long as we're finding something that's worthwhile and they know how to manipulate. They work with a great accountant, they know how to work it. It really doesn't matter a whole damn lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Before I forget, I know I was going to go over rates, but I figured we were probably going to go into the next section, so I just wanted to throw it out there really quick. So just to give you guys an idea, these are cream of the crop interest rates for right now. So conventional, we're looking in the high 6s, in some instances low 7s. Also FHA around mid 6. Same with VA. Done.
Well, there you go.
Boom.
That was wrapped up with a tiny little bow.
But to get your professional and personal quote, contact your local mortgage broker. But yeah, I brought this one up before, and I really want to talk about it just because it was relevant news about the fact that the big corporations coming in and buying real estate, the amount of holdings they have and the amount of funds they're actually raising in terms of real estate commitments. And do you have any thoughts on that? I got a couple of figures just to like really freak you out.
Yeah, I'd love to hear them. But it's always interesting to see what the big corporations are up to, because it makes you think as far as just the lens through, either a single person or family, like what that means reflective of, in this case, investing in real estate, right? So it 100%. Seems like they're gearing up to do a huge numbers in buying. So it makes you think like, does that mean I should be buying?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because right now, the latest projections that they're saying that we're going to be going through a mild recession towards the end of this year. I think we're in the kind of a midst of one already. But that's what they're saying towards the end of the year. So, like, for instance, I threw some things down, but I'm sure you may have heard BlackRock. I've got some opinions about BlackRock, but I'll keep that on another one. But they're holding, I was doing the math, because their current, just in the U.S., it's over $3 trillion in assets that they currently hold.
Wow.
And that's not even including overseas. Jeez. When you're talking trillion and they hold 3.43% in real estate of that, you think that's not that much, right? Well, that's still $109,485,600,000 in market value of real estate that they currently hold in the U.S. And guess what all those are? Rental properties.
Really?
I wonder why. And then also Blackstone, they're raising a record of $30.4 billion towards real estate commitments. Therefore, commitment pretty much committing to be allocated towards purchasing real estate. So what does that say to you? Well, you got some big dogs out there that are trying to get you in a position to rent and put you in a position where home ownership, because guess what? Home ownership is one of those things where technically you can make the argument you pay property tax, so the federal government technically has some sort of ownership stake. However, I see real estate and land as one of the safest investments because it's one of the few assets out there that you can 100% say is yours without any tampering.
Right.
Like technically, like it's, you don't want to scare people, but technically in your bank, it's just numbers on the screen.
Yeah.
You know, but real estate, you can touch it, you can live in it, you can pull cash out of it, you can do a lot of things. And there's only, like I've said a billion times, but a scarcity asset that's tangible is going to be what wins.
Yeah.
So, but
well, the fact that they have so much funds and so much to pour into it, it's almost like they can affect the market themselves.
100%.
And that's their goal. I think they will. So
that's what was happening.
Seeing
in
that it's already
2021.
scarce, if they dive into it with so much money, they make it even more scarce because they've bought up so much of it now.
Right.
Yes.
Creating a gatekeeping effect.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just, it's unfortunate to see, but here's the good thing though. Here's the positive spin on this is that the majority of sellers out there are willing to sell this more so to an individual or a family. If I was a seller, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well, and I got an offer that was the same, one was from Blackstone for full price, and the other one was maybe $5,000 to $10,000 less, or let's just say, just to keep things, I don't want to be discriminating because you can't. But let's just say the same offers. At the end of the day, you're going to be advising your sellers, but at the end of the day, it's going to be their decision. But most likely, they're probably going to pick the family because most people want to have something that's wholesome that's going to be taking their spot.
Right.
So there's a positive there, but I don't want to push anyone to get into real estate that are sitting on the sidelines. But I just want to let you know that in the instance where, which I'm not seeing a big devaluation, I think there's kind of been we've hit a backstop a little bit. But if we do end up into a more of a recession where like supply does spike a good amount, creating values to go lower, these guys are coming in hard.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that.
Something to think about.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up just because it was relevant news, and it was an article that was written on like April 11th, so it was like super. The 30.4 billion that was new with Blackstone. Yeah,
a lot of money.
Pretty wild. Yeah, could you imagine? Yeah, trillions a number I can't even wrap my head around it.
I don't think anyone can.
Yeah.
I have tough time with $1 billion when you really break it down. But
I know I'm writing it down. I'm like, holy crap, there's a lot of zeros. That's wild. But speaking on investments and investors and whatnot, I wanted to give you guys some tips on this because, as you know, he's got a real estate agent here, and I'm the mortgage side, and I also do a good amount of private money as well. So I definitely deal with a wide variety of people, and so do you as well. So I figured we could pop in, just give our 2 cents, and yeah, just on real estate, and we could even go into other assets if you want. But
that'd be cool.
Totally up to you.
That's what I kind of wanted to hop in as a topic is, we've covered, obviously it's real estate focused, but I say we've covered first time home buyers. So like, let's talk about just investors, the ones that are we're thinking maybe second home, third home, building a portfolio, or people that are interested in a short term versus a long term rental or things like that. So just to, on the more educational side, just to throw out the difference, I think most people might know, but just to clear it up, when you have a long-term rental, usually you're looking for a tenant that would be there on a 12-month basis, might renew it over and over, right? But usually about a 12-month turnaround at the minimum, right? Then you'd have the difference between that and a short term, which is more like your Airbnb or VRBO, exactly. Yeah. These are usually more month to month. Right. That would also be considered short term, but usually those more short term are made in destinations that are either close to popular work destinations where the employees are more likely to travel, like traveling nurses or
college towns.
Exactly. Or maybe even vacation spots, right?
Totally, yeah.
And so
Especially for short-term rentals.
exactly. And so these are all different things you have to keep in mind and strategies based off of your location and what kind of property type that you'd be looking for, right?
Yeah, of course.
A short term versus a long term, like obviously in a short term, location is extremely important. I'd say that's probably one of the, I mean, for both, it's a huge factor, but I'd say short term especially. You'd want to be in a place like those places we mentioned. If it's a college town, if it's somewhere near the beach, somewhere near a travel destination, somewhere someone goes on vacation, or just near places like hospitals or big businesses that would come, like traveling businesses, maybe
Like a convention center, like
Cal convention,
Expo
exactly,
is a good example.
where you have people kind of going in and out, maybe more on a short term basis of employment, right?
100%.
Yeah, and then so we have those two, and then we also, of course, just have your traditional like house flipping, which is the intention of buying a home.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, fixing it up, selling it for a profit. But what's your take on those? And in the current market, what are you seeing a lot of?
In the private sector right now, it's a lot of people that are extracting a lot. They're trying to tap into their equity. If they're not in a position where like their credit's not very good, or maybe on paper their income's not amazing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I've been seeing that's been the most popular I've been noticing has been the short-term rentals.
Yeah, I've seen that
because
too.
I've also done some business up in South Lake Tahoe, so it's very applicable.
Yes.
So what's interesting is that what I've been seeing is a lot of people have been like, I did one. It was amazing. He bought a motel. And you'd think motel, not so great, but what he did was he turned it into a month-to-month. Which is really good idea because it was in a prime location for South Lake Tahoe. And I mean, people can stay there. It's not too expensive, and they can stay there for you have the option to do either. You can do month to month, or you can do it as he has it subjugated out in specific rooms, but also as short term, like for maybe a 3-day weekend or something like that.
Sure.
But very lucrative. And but yeah, also multi units, like 1 to 4 are always going to be something that's sought after. Everyone wants to do the FHA hacked, where they can do 3.5% down, get a fourplex, triplex, or a duplex, and rent out the others to be able to pay off your mortgage. The tough part is that, as we know, a supply issue is that they're just not very applicable. There's not a lot of them, but if you're able to find one, I mean, I'm looking all over the place to find one because that's something I'd love to do.
Same here. Yeah. Let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We'll put an offer in with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So the residential single family is a low enough supply as it is. But to your point, house hacking, it's a fantastic idea, but the deals are few and far between, it seems.
Yeah. But the one thing I have been noticing, though, at least on the financing side, is that when people are purchasing investment properties, most people are not going with full documentation type of loans. They're going with private, mainly because the rates are already higher. You're looking in 7 to 8s for just a full doc loan, and you can just do a 10% interest only for the short term. When rates do improve down the road, actually do a new 30-year fixed. And then also what's cool, this goes back to taxes too, because there's usually going to be points involved with private, and then also closing costs, etc. But that's all. Anything that's all specific to that purchase, like points, is also can be claimed on your taxes as well. So people that are smart are doing it that way. They're paying more interest. It's just also able to be deducted as well. So they're able to obtain financing at a bigger down payment. However, the payment's not even sometimes lower, even though it's because it's interest only. You're not extracting it at the principal. And they're able to get in, and it's a lot easier, less documentation. It's usually faster. So it's definitely been an interesting route since rates kind of hit a threshold of like, okay, this is where we're at. People have just been like, I'm going to just go private. Yeah. Most of the time. Yeah. So curious thing, when it comes to rental properties, I wanted to bring this up, like what to think about, because a lot of people, a big thing that people like to come to me about is like, should I buy in like Georgia or Tennessee? Because it's cheap real estate, right?
Yes.
You can buy a house for $75,000, $100,000
Sure.
there, which is crazy. But one thing to keep in mind, because you would be a landlord now once you own an investment property, unless you hire a property management company, which also can be tax deductible as well. But anyways,
Real estate expense there as an investor. Yeah.
right. Yeah. It's called considering an operating cost.
Yep.
Yeah. The one thing to keep in mind if you're looking to buy an investment property is if you're going to be buying out of state, property management all day long, because if there's anything that's wrong with the property, you're inclined to fix that.
Yeah. You're going to fly out.
You're not going to be flying out to Tennessee to fix a toilet.
No.
So that's something to keep in mind is if you're looking to build out your portfolio is if you don't want to have to pay or take a cut from a property management company, get something that's within a 45-minute radius to where it's nothing that's too crazy for you. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, property management company.
Yep.
Yeah. Something to keep in mind. But fix and flips are interesting. They've been a little less applicable and
people are tough given the market.
So people are still interested. It's a little bit expensive to do it. There's private money. There's always going to be points involved. But when it comes to actually doing a fix and flip, a lot of people get interested initially and then they realize what they need to do and then they just bow out. Because when doing like a fix and flip loan, for instance, you got to do you have to get a contractor's bid with all your costs and materials, labor, etc. And then you can reach out to me and get it figured out. So that's a process all in itself. And another thing is the variability in costs and labor. A lot of investors I talk to when it comes to crews actually coming in is just the toughness of just the variability of labor.
Yeah.
Because the turnover is nuts. And then also the bottleneck with the supply chains, it's getting better, but it's still expensive. So unless you have a crazy source, which I know a guy that does, it's from China. But it's tough. You gotta be on point in order to make it worth your while.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a good business to be in, but it's just tough when you got such a limited supply and
material costs, the limited supply.
There's just a lot of variables to keep in mind. It's not just buying a home and getting your documentation. It's you're coordinating with a contractor. You're making sure you understand the draw schedule, which is a fancy way of saying how you get your money for phases of the build.
Yes.
And then you're dealing with a real estate agent. You're dealing with me. There's just a lot of things that go on. That's why ground up construction is seized to a halt just because it's now it's you can a lot of the time make the claim that because a lot of people want to build their home because they think it's cheaper to do so, and it's showing a lot of the time it's not. So that's been a halting part, but yeah, I mean, it's everyone just wants to buy a traditional single family residence.
Yeah.
And that just really comes down to it. I mean, new builds are great, but there's just something about most of the new builds are in new unincorporated areas.
Yes.
So they're usually a little bit farther away. And if you're trying to be in a specific school district, it's just kind of tough to find that,
Yes. That hasn't been established. Usually a school district you want to go to has already been established as a good school district because it's just had a neighborhood there for years and years and years.
Because if you're trying to buy in Penryn, there's no builds. It's all single families that have been there for quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And as you know from talking with me, the supply is just tiny.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of people want to sell because it's a great place to live. I live there. But yeah, it's an interesting world out there for sure. I mean, I kind of touched on some of the tax benefits, but do you want to chime in on any of the things I was talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned the mortgage interest deduction. We also
that's always
have
a good one.
Yep. You mentioned the property tax deduction, but
mortgage insurance as well.
Yep, exactly. But all of the deductible expenses that would go with that as well. To your point, if you're an investor, you could be you can do it on your repairs, you can do it on maintenance, you can do it on your property management fees, you can do it on insurance premiums like you just mentioned. So a lot of ways to save money on the back end.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, another thing you can do is like depreciating your property.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, well, investment properties, what if I sell, incur capital gains? Well, you have the ability to do a 1031 exchange.
1031. Yeah, that was the next one.
Which is a great one to do. You just have to locate a property. Don't quote me. I'm pretty sure you have to locate a property. It's either 60 or 90 days. And then you have a good amount of time thereafter to actually get it closed. You just have to identify it.
Yep.
Which is not too hard if you're working with that kind of time. I think what's going on in the world right now, which is kind of tough, is that people are trying to figure out where they should be holding their money.
Yeah.
And real estate's definitely one. It's a good one. Because I go down to the basics when I think about it. Like, I don't want to sound too apocalypsy. Yeah. But like, what if things were really hit the fan? What are the things that are actually going to be useful? Right? I mean, shelter. Duh.
Yeah. Real estate.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
Land.
Land, real estate. I don't want to say it, but technically firearms.
Yes. Protection, safety.
Like actual useful tools. Like you can say cars are a liability, but it's a form of transportation. Obviously, if things really hit the fan, it may just go back to chariots.
Yeah.
After we run out of gas in our battery.
I mean, yeah, if we're talking, well, that's an interesting, I think I was having this discussion with some friends of mine where it's like, it's like how far down do you want to go as far as like how bad things can get, right? I mean, we've all seen the apocalypse movies, the zombie apocalypse movies, this and that. It's like we all get the exactly. We all get the MO if it gets that bad. It's like you want guns, you want food, you want medicine, you want a place to stay that's safe, you
Blankets.
want cars. Yeah, exactly. Basic survival needs, right? And so those are really some assets I think and you should always have. And this goes to hey, Warren Buffett always preach. It's like diversification is just your absolute best tools.
You can look at it from a position of like, okay, you can subjugate it in buckets. You can be like, okay, shit really hits the fan. Like, okay, if things are like, that's
I've got
relatively
my red
accessible.
alert. Yeah,
if things are going really well, I have that to always tap into. Like, because there's
Yes.
different types. Like, I would say on the top of the rung of like, as long as things are going well and do it, like crypto. Just because it's a newer concept within the last 15 years.
And I think exactly that's a one to play with when things are going well, right? Where it's like all these other buckets are like, okay, we have enough to be throwing into multiple buckets, right? And I think that's in a place you want to be where it's like, yeah, we're saving for worst case scenario. We're thinking of, short term kind of midterm scenario. I want something back. And then we're also like, okay, I've got enough wiggle room to throw some money into something very long term. This is going to be for me retired or my kids or my grandkids or my, So and then the more I don't know. I call them fun, but cryptocurrencies and things like that, things that are a little more speculative. Oh, also we didn't mention I guess gold and silver and things like that are probably more towards
gold's probably in the second bucket. If you really think about gold and silver, which is it's very old school. Yeah, it definitely it's a great asset class. But obviously, if things were to really hit the fan, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like what are you gonna like? Gold doesn't have any sort of intrinsic or actual utility to a human being.
You still need a functioning economy in a sense of fiat. Right. Or I guess I'd say that before it used to be gold-backed money until like the 70s, right? But if you're starving and you don't feel safe, you don't really care about. No one cares about gold if everyone's in that situation, right? It's not gonna. You can't eat gold. Can't make a fire with gold. Yeah. So
if I were to put in the second bucket, I'd probably do like your IRA, potentially if you have a dual purpose or like a universal life insurance policy, something similar to that. Yeah, and also like maybe a high yielding savings account. Yeah, and then the third one would probably be stocks, because that's predicated on businesses being around. Yes, and also an exchange being around as well. Right. Then you and those
businesses doing well, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely it's weird to think about money that way, especially when you think about how our money is actually derived from, because our money is predicated on debt. So
Yeah.
it's just a different type of thing, which is bizarre. And that's why we're rewarded with debt so much.
Yeah.
Like we literally get tax benefits from accruing tons of debt.
Right.
That's weird, right?
Very weird.
It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's yeah, it's very weird. It's a debt system.
Yeah.
But it's really, I think when you talk about the first bucket too, really it's like it's a system of viewing value, not just money, right? It's
Right.
like and that I think that term like is senior to money. Money is a system we use to create just almost like a neutral value of like, hey, you know, this is something we can all use
We've
to get what
established
we
it as
want.
a transactional
Yeah.
vehicle.
Whereas,
truly.
you know, in ancient times, right, it's more of a trade system of, again, value, right? If I give you this and you give me that, this is more valuable to me and this is more valuable to you. So here we go, right? So
Right. Yeah, because if you think about this too,
back to the basics.
right. Like so with a mortgage, you know, we called what's defined as your terms of your loan, like your interest rate, your type of mortgage, and your term, etc. That's called a note. That's also that's also what's called your dollar is a
Right.
federal promise or federal promissory note.
Right.
The term is okay. This is $1, and the term is I can exchange this for $1, which is established by X seller
Right.
or
right.
barter or whatever you want to call it. So it's just weird, but yeah, it's pretty much our dollar is based on pretty much faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so interesting to speculate of like when, like you said, when it really hits the fan, right? And again, just I think markets of value in general are completely predicated on faith. That's how the free market system even works. It's just,
100%.
you have to trust the other person that if I give you this, you're going to give me that, and we're not going to have any problems, or you're not going to screw me, right?
Right.
So,
right.
it's based on reputation and faith more than anything. Yeah.
Have you heard of BRICS? What's going
BRICS.
on with Brazil, Russia, India, China?
Okay.
So all these big countries, which make up a very strong amount of the world economics,
Okay.
What they've been doing, which is scary, is that they've been meeting and trying to figure out a way to essentially develop a new form of central currency.
Yes, I have heard of this. Actually,
so a lot of
yes.
people have been coming to me asking, so like, Sam, what's this going to happen? Well, frankly, we're not there yet, but it would be a very, very big switch because I mean, yeah, I don't want to freak people out, but it would be
something to think about.
Yeah,
though, yeah.
but that goes right back to real estate, and like real estate is one of those things where it's like you can put a fair market value on it, derived from whatever dollar you want, whether it be a yen or whatever.
Yeah.
But that scarcity component in it being tangible, and not everyone can have that, and if there's a desired demand for that asset, which there always will be.
Yes.
It's
It's intrinsically valuable.
very safe. But yeah, I mean, if we were to really lose our central currency, like it would not be good.
No.
At all. It would be
Well, the scary part of that,
a lot of people will get very poor very quickly overnight.
Yes, I think the scary part of that is switching to essentially, I believe what they're trying to do, those countries, and essentially what the U.S. might do, which is terrifying to think about, is going on like a nation
universal currency?
Crypto, almost like a crypto type currency. It's like a digital currency.
So that's
right?
actually the U.S. is actually trying to use that as a defense mechanism to what BRICS is doing.
Ah,
Yeah, so they do not like that. They don't want a one world currency, a one world order,
yeah,
because they would not benefit from that at all. They are in a position to where, like, I have resources. For one, Russia is known for oil. Their agriculture is terrible. So they rely on a lot of imports for a lot of their food goods, especially produce. But guess what? Other countries like South Africa or Brazil have a lush agriculture. So the idea is to get as many superpowers to kind of pretty much develop a United States, because that's why the United States is so flourished, and that's why we've been using it as the central currency, central world reserve currency. And it's because we have so many capabilities within our country to do so. Like that's why Russia could never just kick everyone's ass, because they're so weak on one of the biggest components, which is agriculture. But the United States is amazing. California alone supplies so much of the world's produce, nuts, etc. So we'll see how it unfolds, but we're not there yet. But just know that your real estate is safe. And if you don't feel like it's going to be safe by the federal government, Second Amendment.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's why it comes down to that too.
Hey, that's why we have it. That's why we have it.
Down to the highest of values are usually the most basic.
I don't think that's political. I just think that's just something that it's everyone's right. It's everyone's right to do so. So might as well. It kind of goes back to, you don't want to be in the worst case scenario, but in the instance where it's always better to be over prepared than under prepared, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether you hate guns or you love guns, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
just understand safety and utility.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be put in a position where you're going to be. I mean, that's what the Second Amendment is all about. It's just if you're not going to use it, someone else with possibly ill intentions will, which is the unfortunate thing about it.
Yeah, it was developed
deterrent.
It was all developed behind the idea of the founding fathers saw that a government has the ability to take control, and sometimes power is sometimes. With great power comes great responsibility, and some of those people that have that power take advantage of it. So in the instance where there is tyrannical on the government side of things, the private citizens, the United States citizens, have the ability to revolt and fight back against any sort of tyrannical government situation. That was the original reason as to why, and we can't forget that. It's not about just being a dumbass trying to shoot around like in the middle of the night. Like, it's just, that's not what it's for. It's meant for true big boy reasons. So big boy, big girl, big day,
big reasons.
Yeah. Big reasons.
Big reasons.
Big reasons
for big bad things happening pretty much. But hey, hopefully it doesn't come to that. I mean, I think as a person who is if someone is
optimistic,
I'd say I am. But if
it's a good thing.
If someone is a gun owner or is feels this type of way or that type of way with guns, it's like you want to have the ability to protect yourself. You have to deter from people that are not of sound mind that also have access to guns, because it's just
because it sounds like an oasis if everyone didn't have one, but the problem is the bad people will always find a way, whether it be outlying knives, and knives were becoming the new thing of like the most effective way to hurt someone. They're going to find a way to get a knife. Same rule applies with firearms. So it's like it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, there are bad people out there, and there are good people, and the good people are the ones that are going to be safe and responsible.
So be good people.
Yeah, be good people. But yeah, final thoughts. We love real estate. I'm working on it myself.
Yeah.
Just be aware that the big whales are gearing up. And if you are in a position where you've been thinking about it, you think you're financially and mentally ready to do so, give us a call. Because we don't want you to lose out your opportunity. And we practice what we preach. I'm working on buying my own home.
Same.
And it's one of those things where I truly, in my heart, and that's why I love this business, because I truly believe in it as one of the strongest, if not the strongest asset class you can possibly have.
It's 100% why I got into it. I mean, I think,
and helping people, of course.
And well, that's almost that's the bonus of it, which just makes it even that much more like who wouldn't love this, right?
Like you nerd out with the real estate, but the good feels, the heart, the passion comes from the client experience and just helping.
Right. No, I remember reading like things like Rich Dad Poor Dad, or like Think and Grow Rich, and like all those kind of classic I'd say Rich Dad Poor Dad is more financial than Think and Grow Rich is, of course, but it's different kind. But like I remember things like that and a couple other things just really opened my eyes to like, oh wow, like real estate is kind of the one. It's like it's kind of,
there's just so
kind of unbeatable.
There's so many ways to manipulate it into your advantage. There's just your immediately net worth just goes up. And yeah, I mean, the history shows. I mean, that's just like there's been 2008. There was a big dip, but guess what? I think right now we're like still. I think I don't quote me, but we should be like well over 20% of where we were at from there. Well, guaranteed, probably like 40 because we did 20% year over year in like 2020 2021. So, but yeah, at least in our area, your area may differ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, you got anything else?
No, I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
I think we're good. Well, I thank you guys so much for tuning in. Episode 9. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks for episode 10.
Absolutely. Have a great week, guys.
See you later, guys.